Hello, it's Cynthia Allen. I'm so glad to have you here with the Move Better, Feel Better, the Feldenkrais Awareness Summit. And I'm excited to be able to introduce to you our next guest, Linda Tellington-Jones. Linda started out with a great passion for horses as a child. The Tellington method was really created 4 decades ago as a system to begin with for animal training, but it's grown into a system for all beings, in part through her 4-year training with Dr. Moshe Feldenkrais at the Humanistic Psychological Institute. Dr. Tellington-Jones has received numerous honors, including a more recent one in 2008, which was an honorary doctorate called Communication Between the Species at the University of Wisdom in California. Linda has teachers in 37 countries, and she's written 21 books published in 15 different languages. Thank you so much for being here, Linda.
It is such a pleasure for me. You just, I want to give you a little background, but before I say anything, I want to say that Moshe changed my life.
Yeah.
That sounds so funny, because I have been with horses since I was 6 years old and had to ride to school because we didn't have any school buses in Canada at that time outside of Edmonton, Alberta. And I grew up riding, showing, having many horses. Horses were my career. I married a man 20 years older than I, who was in the last cavalry class, the American Cavalry, the year I was born. And so it was a huge background, a beautiful background with horses. And in 1960, my grandfather, whom I never met because he had divorced my grandmother, whole other story, came to us and brought a form of Russian gypsy massage for horses that we began using for our horses with great success for 100-mile endurance riding for competitions. And we did a great deal of showing and eventing. And we found that with this form of massage for horses, we could actually help a horse recover faster after hard endeavors. However, we couldn't change the personality or behavior of a horse. And how that happened is in 1971, I was at Esalen Institute for a weekend, and I was with Roger Russell, and we did a one session, one Feldenkrais awareness through movement with Ilana Rubenfeld. And I just found out recently from Chris Kresge that was actually recorded under the blankets, illegally recorded from Moshe. And it was a beautiful lesson. And I, as a rider, where there was like one position, the shoulders stayed back because traditionally they stuck a stick or a crop with your elbows to keep your shoulders back. And, you know, as a rider, you sat in one position and it was very still. So I get down on the floor, and for 1 hour, I do this beautiful movement, like rounding your back like a cat. That was 1971. I, at 82, can still do that. I got up, and I'd never been able to dance. And that night, Roger and I danced like I had never been able to dance before. One lesson. 1975, I was in Germany teaching with horses, and Roger wanted to have something to share for a training that I'd been asked to do, a 1-year program for Germans. And he wrote to Moshe and wanted to have to go with him and study, but of course it was in Hebrew. And then he heard about the course at the Humanistic Psychology Institute in San Francisco, and he wanted to enroll. And I took one look at this. Cynthia, it was like I knew I had to do this. I thought it was for my riding students, because what you can do for movement, of course, we all know. But when I got in that course, in the second day in the training, Moshe made a statement that I was lying on the floor. There were 63 of us in that first training, and we had the amazing honor to go through 4 years with Moshe. And he made the statement that it's possible for a human to learn without constant repetition using these gentle, non-habitual movements that activate new neural pathways to the brain that make more brain cells available for learning. And his passion was learning. And when I heard this, I thought, wait a minute, if this is true for a human, it's got to be true for a horse. And I went out and I started just moving horses in a different way with a different intention than I'd ever had before. Because before it was like a massage, it was traditionally repetitive. And I just thought, how can I move this horse in a gentle way that, you know, the tail, the legs, the head, the lips, the ears, totally different way. And this is a horse that didn't want to be caught. She'd been raised in Montana and been a broodmare, not been ridden. And she completely changed in 1 hour exploration. That's how I wasn't doing anything. I was just exploring. And wow, this was a horse that didn't want to be caught, wasn't friendly, didn't want to come to you. And she literally changed her behavior overnight. And I thought, that is amazing. And that summer after class, Roger and I would go out and we'd experiment because I was from the area and I had wonderful horse connections and everybody was happy when I wanted to do something new with their horses. We completely changed this way of being with horses.
So it's like you had this one lesson that really changed everything for you. And then you have this one lesson really for the horse that changes everything for the horse and for you and the horse. Yeah.
Exactly. And today, I mean, it's just, you know, when I look back on the honor of that we had of being in that class with Moshe and having Margaret Mead and Prebrum and Carl Prebrum and different people come in and dialogue with Moshe, it was just amazing when I think of that. And I'm so grateful to Roger because he was so passionate about the work. I had 100 irons in the fire, but always he was back like studying, doing awareness and movement. And one of the things that was really changed me in the 3rd year of our training, Moshe, that's when we started the functional integration. And Moshe laid a person down on the floor and put a stick down the back and said, now just look at the differences. And something inside me said, I don't want to see the differences. I intuitively knew that if I did, and I didn't know this then, I know it now, I know why I did it, because it's changed the way I work, which is in a very different way. And because I knew that if I saw the differences, the person would see that. And that's just what I've realized over the years. So we have a different way of seeing the body as perfect. And how knowing that my intention, that how I see that will affect the person. I'm sorry. I get really excited when I think of this. And so what happened? I mean, I was in Germany teaching, and I was doing the horse stuff, and Roger was bringing the awareness through movement classes, and then also working with the horses. Just had a huge influence on my continued involvement, and we were very successful, as you can imagine, with horses and with people. And in 1983, I had an aha moment, an epiphany, that I was working on a very difficult horse at a veterinary clinic in Delaware. And the head vet owned this horse, and they could not figure out what was wrong with her. And so I put my hands on her in this very gentle way, just giving her a sense of herself. Just feel yourself. And this is a horse that what normally tried to kick or bite you if you came, tried to brush her, put the saddle on, any of this. And when I just put my hands on her without judgment, she got really quiet. And her owner was standing there and said, Linda, like, what are you doing? Are you using energy, or what's your secret? And I intuitively said, don't worry what I'm doing, just put your hands on the horse and move the skin in a circle. And when I said that, I thought, okay, oh, what's that about? Because that's not something that I had ever thought about doing. But I had learned to trust my intuition. And so I didn't say I didn't know what I was talking about. And she went up and just moved the skin gently on the shoulder. And instead of trying to snap at her, like threatening to bite her or moving away, she got really quiet. And I thought, that's really interesting because here's a horse with a severe behavior problem and this is one of the vets working for the U.S. Olympic team. So, I mean, you don't get any better than this. And what happened was I thought, you know what? Anybody can move the skin in a circle. It takes years to learn this beautiful, amazing Feldenkrais work. And that's when I started on another path of following the circles. And one of the things that had made a huge, like I have these milestones in my life. In 1976, the second year in our training with Moshe, he had recommended that we read a book called Man on His Nature by Sir Charles Sherrington. And in the second chapter, in the chapter on the body wisdom, Sherrington wrote that every cell in the body knows its function in the body. And when I read that, I thought, I remember sitting there and putting the book down and thinking, because the year before we had watched Moshe in 20 minutes change the life of a 28-year-old woman who'd had a stroke and couldn't move her hand. And in 20 minutes, she was totally different. I met her years later, by the way. It was interesting. So I was thinking of this, and we didn't yet know how to do these miracles that we later learned, of course. But I remember looking at my fingers and thinking, cells, just when you put, when I touch another being, allow the intelligence of my cells to speak to the intelligence of this body, whether it's a horse or a dog or a human, it doesn't matter. And that's when I started following the path, the path of the cells. And that has a huge amount to do in our teaching now. Finally, after all these years, I have a whole other understanding. What is cellular intelligence?
It's very wonderful. It's to me, it's as if you've been really following a combination of your instinct, then some other influence comes in and your instinct kind of broadens, or you tap into it even a little bit deeper. And it's not that you aren't knowledge based, because there's these knowledge forces coming in and out and through your life. Certainly Moshe was one of them, but there's been many. And, when he talked about the infamous or famous quote of his about doing, taking it out and doing it in your own handwriting, I feel like, Linda, you've, been one of those people who've really done it for sure in your own handwriting. And it's wonderful to hear you talk with such passion about it.
Well, that's another thing I remember in that first summer, saying that don't do just what I do, develop your own fingerprints. And I mean, the brilliance of the Feldenkrais work, as it stands, is fantastic. And I think many of us have just expanded and built on that basis. I mean, today at 82, I am, still working full on, more than most people do, and totally flexible and pain-free.
That's fabulous to hear. It's fabulous to hear. So where have you been taking your work? You started with this horse, you started with this beautiful circles. Where has it gone from your work with horses?
Well, what happened, first of all, I just want to go back because you talk about instinct. One of the things that has kept my eye on the target all these years is that for my 30th birthday, I saw an ad in the San Francisco Chronicle that for $5 you can have one of the first computer generated astrological charts. So I wrote away for it, and I still have this little booklet. And it said that in my lifetime, I would develop a form of communication that would spread around the world. Well, interesting. Like, what does that mean, communication? And in order to do so, I would have to learn to trust my intuition. And I went to my husband's library because he had a very big library, being 20 years older and, very intelligent. And I just pulled down a book. It was a Rosicrucian book, and it defined intuition as unlearned knowledge. And I just started listening, following that, where, like you said, you know, so many influences have come into my life. It's a book here, a book there, that just give me this new information. So where it's taken me, I remember at Amherst, because we were asked, some of us were asked to come back, and we could attend a class with 200, and I think 38 people, something like that, at Amherst. And there wasn't enough possibilities to have lessons with Moshe or with any of the wonderful teachers. And I've had the amazing, you know, good fortune to have 10 sessions from Moshe, because I could afford it. And he took me, which is like, I always wonder, that's really interesting, because he had so many people wanting him. And I had so many sessions from Mia. It's just incredible. She was so generous with me, because she loved to come with me with the horses. And you know Mia, she's just like so enthusiastic. So anyway, what happened then at Amherst, somebody had a barking dog in the dorm. And I remember looking at that dog, and it was very, very upright, and started to think about, posture has such an influence on the behavior of this dog. And this is where with horses, I'd already found out, and this is after years. I mean, I was a professional in the horse business, and I ran a school with students from 9 countries who lived with us for 9 months. And I didn't know that when you change the posture of the head of a horse, and then I realized it with dogs also, that you change the behavior. It took me years to find out, wait a minute, it shifts them from the sympathetic nervous system of fight flight to the parasympathetic of being able to relax and receive and to think. Anyway, these are all discoveries that I made over the years. And in '93, we started doing these 6-month certification trainings for working with dogs to change behavior, performance, the health, of course, and the relationship with your dog. And that, of course, took us to people. And I remember the first time I reached out to a person in 1983 in July, after I just discovered these little circles. And so I was teaching them in a class with about 100 people. And so I would always like have the people stand up and pick a partner next to them and reach out and put their hands on them and just move the skin in a circle. Before we started actually having pressures and tempos, which I'm going to explain in a bit. And so a woman called me like the next week. She was a massage therapist, and she said she hadn't been able to work because she had a ganglia on her foot, and it was so painful, and nothing she could do could get rid of it. And I said, well, you know, I don't know if it'll help or not, but just try these really gentle circles around it. And then it was just one circle. And so she called me back a couple of weeks later and said she'd done it, and she was back working, and it was gone. And I mean, we know that ganglia have a tendency often to disappear, but she could like change it. And and then someone else from that very first training called me and said that she'd gone home and she'd tried this on her husband, who had a back issue. And just with these circles, his pain reduced like a lot. I thought, that's pretty interesting. And so this is how over the years, like every time I do a training with a horse or with a dog, to always learn for yourself, to find out what it feels like. And just like 2 years ago, I had a woman in a training in Virginia, in Maryland, sorry, and in a dog training for 6 days. I'll teach about 2 hours of just these TTouches that we're going to be showing you in a bit. And she took that home, and with her 97-year-old mother, who couldn't turn her head to look to the right, she just did a few of these little very gentle touches around her neck. Just, you know, no intention, just like feel what I've been learning. for these animals. And the next time she took her for a drive, her mother's looking out the window and can turn her head. And that's the thing that I love so much about this work, because she could learn this in a couple of sessions. And what we teach now is this for self-help, and we're teaching it online because we have so many things. We have a woman who couldn't leave the house because of agoraphobia, and after just being on the online learning, these simple touches, she could go out to her daughter's
Wow.
school
Wow,
stuff.
that's really impressive. And I mean, I love how you've made it so accessible really for virtually anyone, not only by making it online and really embracing that, but also by looking at, I guess, sort of like it's almost like the simplest common denominator that can go across every species. Could we take a look at your some of your diagrams that might help us to
Yes.
understand?
So I chose to use this mind map to show you first this mind map of these different animals. And each of these animals, like have a touch that go with it. And when I first got the idea, because we had so many different touches, and they simply represent the different parts of the hand. So that when with the abalone touch, you know, an abalone has this big muscle underneath and they stick to the rocks. And so this is the most soothing touch, where you just put your hand on wherever you can. And I'm going to be leaving you on the heart hug later with that is one of the touches. And it's a, you move the tissue in a circle and a quarter in this very gentle way with the abalone. It's very calming. And all these different animals have a name that goes with them. Now, one of the things that I, of course, didn't know when I started this so many years ago is the effect that will have with us, because it brings in the spirit of the animal. And today, that's really more important than ever, because there's, some of you may have heard of this nature deficit syndrome, which is a big problem in our, not just in North America, but also in Western Europe, apparently, because people don't get out in nature enough, unless you happen to have a dog or a horse. And so by bringing, like, when you do the TTouches with the finger pads, that's called the clouded leopard, after a little leopard that I worked on in the Los Angeles Zoo. And all these different names, that's a clouded leopard. And then the lying leopard is when you use the underside of your fingers for different parts. And you can, like, when we then use the tips, maybe I'm just the tip of my hand, fingers, I will use to, for instance, to be around a joint that may have joint pain. And you can disappear at your own pain. And that tip is, that's called a raccoon touch. If you've ever seen a little raccoon work, how they use their hands, it's so interesting. And then the tiger touch, the bear touch rather, is with the fingers together and with the nails. And sometimes, ooh, that feels really good to go in with that. And then if you really want like a bigger area, it's the tiger touch, where you, same thing, fingernails, and you actually go fingers farther apart. Then you tip your fingers over and like around the face. That's a nice way just to gently move the tissue. And that is what we call the baby chimp, because chimps, when they hang their hands down, they kind of curl their fingers up. And I've had the great pleasure of being with chimps in Zambia and actually working with them, rescued chimps. And then you have, okay, look at this part of my fingers, and you'll see that is when we use right around the neck. This is a lovely, lovely way to use, and that's the baby orang.
Baby what?
Orangutan.
Baby orangutan.
Right, yes, they just hang their fingers down more. Now the chimp touch, the baby chimp is just the fingernails, the back of the fingernails, and the chimp is from the first to the second joint. And this is something you can use in different parts of your body. It's an easy thing to do. You know, if you're not very dexterous with your fingers. Now, that probably won't be a problem with Feldenkrais practitioner, but with many people it is. They just don't have the dexterity or the potential for having this movement in these three joints. Right? So it's easy to use that flat part. Now, this is what we call this angle. That's what we call the orang. That's the adult orang. And this is like on a human, if I'm working on a person, I'll use it on their back, possibly. On animals, it's really easy because you can reach out on the side of a horse or the side of a dog. And they all have their purposes. And then like, you know, we have the llama touch, the camel. I won't go into all because you won't remember them all, but you just, the one that is pretty interesting is the banana slug. That's when you take the side of your, see the hand here, because it's soft if I curl my hand. And that came about because somebody in one of my classes said, Linda, my fingers are so stiff from too much computer work that I can't, these joints just don't move without discomfort. And so I said, oh, well, not a problem. Just try a different part. Don't worry. And just turn your hand over, curl the little finger, turn it over, and feel it's soft. And you can use that in some areas if, you know, if you can't use other parts. You just use whatever you can. But when we bring, I mean, easily, and when we bring the animals into it, we're bringing nature into it. We're bringing the spirit of the animal and connecting to that Mother Earth and nature. So
that's so lovely. That's lovely. So you really not only have options for people, you've developed how each of these touches have a different impact, maybe through the animal energy, but also through the position of the hand, and then how the person is connecting to that or being.
Right, and it's actually, you know, it simply conveys, teach what part of the hand are you talking about? Because when we do this, we have 3-year certification trainings in Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. And in those, they have to do 100 case studies, and they have to tell us, you know, which of the touches did they use on what part of the body and with what pressure. And you'll see in the next one, let's take a look.
Okay.
If we're ready. Now, this is the 9th element. I'm going to show you our 9 elements that make up the work. And this is the 9th, and it's the TTouch Empowerment Feedback Scale. And the reason we do this is I want to have both the left brain and the right brain activated. That's one of the things that TTouch does. And when you put numbers, anytime you, anything to do with numbers activates our logical part, our left brain, and anything to do with feelings, the right brain. So I've attempted to put like a feeling word with the number. And what we do with animals, we just pay attention to how can we be with them in a way that's not forcing them, that allows them to feel what we're doing and want more of it, want to be with us. With humans, the reason I feel this is so important in our lives, so much of stuff we have to do. And this is a possibility when somebody is working with you to tell them, no, I'd like a little more pressure or a little less pressure. Now, it's really hard when you're working with someone normally to say, oh man, that's too hard. Like, do something else. We make it really logical. Say, let's see, I ask you, please, when we're learning this word, give me a number. How would that be? And if somebody is, like, I'd rather have something else, that's a 4. And if it's like, oh, that's good, I like that, that's an 8. And you just have these like good, really good, nice, wow. We have a funny story. We were working one day with a certification training group in Germany, and I had just found this baby orang. touch, a lovely way to be around the neck and head. And so we were sharing this feedback scale, and I was working on someone, and I said, you know, okay, on the 1 to 10 chart, how is this pressure and tempo? Which I'll show you in a minute how we judge that. And she gave it a 9. I said, oh, that's really interesting. So is there anything I could do other than this to make it a 10? And she said, yeah, if you were George Clooney. And of course, everybody breaks that. And the thing is, sometimes it isn't. I remember working on a reporter who was in a classroom once just talking about this, and I could see, holy mackerel, she didn't want me anywhere near her body. And you actually, to make her feel even accepting, I had to be off her body several inches doing the touches before you could see her breath change. So it was very interesting. And that's unusual, but I'll give you a great example. In a weekend training, we had a couple in it. This is like 4 years ago in Minneapolis. And at the end, because they practice this a lot, working between each other. And at the end, the woman, the wife said that she'd come that weekend to make a decision if she would stay with her husband or not. And this is the first time he had listened to her and actually given her what she'd asked for. They've come back every year now. They've been here 4 more years with me now in the longer trainings.
Wow. That's
you know, this idea, and when you're working with the client, you can't give them this number, but you can say, now, after a little bit of work, I'd say, now, would you feel comfortable with less pressure, or would you prefer more pressure? And give them a choice. Because if you say, do you like that? You know, if it's okay, if it's even acceptable, anything is better than nothing on the body. But I mean, it is an empowerment scale, and it does get people feeling their body in a different way.
I like it. I really like it. You ready to go to the next one?
Yep.
Okay.
Now, one of the reasons, whoops, here we are. This is actually, we made up this form of mind map. I did it with Sandy Rakowitz, because this is the basis of our online training that we do. And with a mind map, usually that little curl underneath would go out to the side, but then it makes it, you know, too big on the page. So I just had this idea. Now, these are 9 elements that make it very logical to learn this work. And the first element that you see here is the basic 1 1/4 circle. And you can say 1, and what you do, you imagine the face of a clock, and you, like, take it off the wall. You have to think of the old school clocks. I don't know what kids with digital watches are going to do anymore, but it's a round clock, and 6 o'clock you put towards the ground, and you catch the skin at 6 o'clock, and you move from 12, 3, 6, 9. And you actually stop at 9. And what people will say, well, why do you start at 6? Well, try it, you know, on yourself. If you start up, imagine the face here, and just try it, Cynthia. If you start at 12 and go down to 3, do you feel it pulls? It's a pulling, right?
There is a pulling.
And if you start at 6 and make a little arc, like a little sweeping arc, you feel it release, and it releases your breath. And then you can move around the circle in a different way. And some people will prefer clockwise, and others counterclockwise. And you try it. What do you prefer? Now, one of the reasons that I'm like so passionate about this work after all these years is I did 4 studies with Anna Wise, who at the time I met her in 1984, she was the director of the Boulder Institute for Biofeedback. And she was using Maxwell Cade's mind mirror, and she'd studied with him, and she'd done the research with him in the UK for 11 years, then had come to the US. And she had measured me and found, she'd watched me work in a horse presentation and wanted to measure me because she was interested in people developing this state of the awakened mind, which has a specific, and you can look that up, by the way, you can Google Anna Wise and the awakened mind.
Linda, I'm
And,
just starting to have a little trouble hearing you, like your voice is getting
uh-oh,
lower.
oh dear, sorry. And
That's
there's
okay.
a bird sitting on a railing yelling out there. Can you hear it?
I can hear it. I love watching the wind blow across your, for people who don't know, Linda's in Hawaii, and you can see that in her colors and in her being.
And I wish you could see out to my right is up the mountain, and to my left is out to the ocean, and out that way, because we live on 2 stories, and our main living is on the 2nd story. So this bird is out on the railing yelling. Where was I? What keeps me so passionate is this Anna Wise thought, watching me, that I was working in Maxwell Cade's awakened mind state. And it's a state where both hemispheres are activated, and rather than just the logical side, the left brain or the right brain. And so she measured me, and indeed, when I was working on a horse, I was in this awakened mind state. It has specific, like beta, alpha, theta, delta, very specific pattern, even in both hemispheres. And then she wanted to study my students. And so we did that. And what we found is that when they were moving the tissue in a quarter circle, and I'd like you just to try this out, just put your hands gently on and move the tissue. You see it's moving the tissue in 1 circle and a quarter. Now, if you go over, because people think, oh yeah, you mean just a circle and a quarter over the skin? No, when you actually move over the skin, it does not put you in that same focused, awakened mind state. So it's 1 and a quarter, like this.
So it's not on top of the skin, it's connecting kind of through the skin a bit.
Yes, it's actually moving the tissue, moving the skin like that. Now, what we found in the 4 studies that we did with her is that we were getting that activation of both hemispheres. Now, why does this keep me passionate? Because we need the logical side, and anything to do with numbers or methods activates your left brain. Without it, you couldn't be in this summit, because you wouldn't know how to work all of this technology we need. Why is the right brain important? That activates our feeling, our creativity, our intuition, and our empathy. And that compassion, that empathy, if you're only functioning from your left brain logic, it's not happening. And we need this in our world. And the thing that's so beautiful, if you do these 1 and a quarter circles on yourself, you come to a new state of appreciation and gratitude and being, and have that logical capacity to function in our world as we need it. So that's one of the things that keeps me really passionate.
That's wonderful. Is there anything else you want to cover from this before you maybe teach us a little bit more self-care that we could do for ourselves?
I do, because the second one is really important. It's the pressure, and this is why it's so possible to learn it. Now, your Feldenkrais people are used to working, well, Moshe wasn't always gentle, but moving people in ways that are comfortable. However, people who go for massage, boy, that there's a lot of people feel that they don't feel anything if it can't be deep pressure. So we have on here, you see on this scale is a 0.5 as a half a pressure, and then a 1 to 10. Now, just so you get the idea, how do you know what we mean by a 1 pressure? So support your elbow, just connect your thumb to your cheek so that you stabilize your hand. And I use my forefinger to move the tissue, the skin, on my eyelid. It's actually my eyelid that I'm moving in a circle and a quarter with the lightest contact, but enough contact that you don't slide over the skin. That is a one pressure. Now, when I was working on my elbow, because I just 3 months ago, I fractured this elbow and my shoulder. And I will tell you, I was working on a 1 with a 1 pressure, actually even a half. It's almost over the hair because it was so painful. But you see, it hurts anywhere. So anyway, so if you get any kind of an injury, if you catch it right away, you can actually disappear, completely stop that pain. It's way more effective than ice. Ice just masks it. But this will, and if you put it in just body temperature water, it's even more effective because our cells are made up of so much water that the water helps. So you just move the tissue as lightly as possible for acute injuries. Now, most people prefer a little more pressure. So we want to have that 3. What's a 3 out of 10? Okay, so again, support your elbow, catch the cheek, and now, with your thumb, and now I use my longest finger, my forefinger, and I allow the other fingers to be there with it, like instead of holding them out of the way. And I feel your cheekbone, just feel the bone underneath. Say hello to this bone. And now move in 1 1/4 circle, starting toward the ground with your 6, and move in whatever is comfortable. Don't even think about the direction, whatever works for you. It will be different on different sides, probably. So just feel it where you comfortably feel all the way around. Oh, hello, cheekbone. And now let's go to our arm. And I put the thumb underneath the arm and I curve my fingers lightly and let's see that 1 pressure. Whoa, what does it take? How lightly must I move that tissue so that I don't slide? And that's really, how light can I go but not slide? That's your 1. Now, go back, feel the cheekbone. Okay, and now let's see, what does that feel like? And this is where I use the pad, half of the pad of my fingers, but I'm focusing on my middle finger and the others are just following. And that's your 3. And so we just go from that 3. Say somebody says, oh man, I can't even feel that, in my shoulders, I am so tight, I can't feel it. And so you tip your fingers up and go in with the bear touch and move, and you can go way deeper and give that person that what they want, more pressure, without causing causing pain, without causing pain that happens if you go in and press on an area really hard. So why do we have it up to 10? In all my years, Cynthia, that I have been working on people, I've used a 10 maybe 3 times. And one was on a bodybuilder, one was on a person who had years of chiropractic work and just couldn't feel her body and really wanted to feel that. And so I did a few of them on her. But most massage starts between a 6 and an 8. And our work is around 3 average, 2 to 4 with the feedback from the person.
And do you find that as a person experiences it more, even if they started out as a 10, they gradually tend to like something a little bit less, like they become more sensitive to less, or not?
Yes, definitely. Now,
I assume that's not a goal, but that just naturally would happen, I would think.
Well, first of all, with a 10, like I say, over the years, it's been 2 bodybuilders and another person who'd really been badly injured years before and couldn't feel her body. But normally an 8 is a lot. And I'll only do a few of those. And then I say, now, what do you want? Do you want to connect with your cellular intelligence? Or do you just want to get to this body? And what we're talking about here is cellular intelligence. That is the difference. And for years, I want to talk about that, because when you start to do this work, We're talking to the cells. And like, I didn't get it. I kept saying, well, what is my intention here? My intention is to support this cellular function, the function of the cells. This concept that Sir Charles Sherrington said, that, you know, that every cell in the body knows its function in the body. Well, what if we connect with that cellular function? And what really excited me over the years, I first, it's been about 10 years ago, I read the book Spontaneous Evolution by Bruce Lipton and Steve Bauerman. And in it, there's like a whole chapter on the evolution of the cells, and the intelligence of these cells is amazing. And then I keep saying, okay, but what's behind that? I mean, and how come with these circular touches, we can take a person, for instance, I'm just thinking of somebody's 95-year-old mother. I went to visit with her, and my friend said she went every day because she lived like a mile away. And she always felt really upset because she'd come in and her mother would be going, and she couldn't talk, but she's trying to communicate. And my friend doesn't know what to do. And I just sat down beside her mother on a chair and just put my hand gently on her arm and just started doing these very gentle, like a 1 or 2 pressure and a 2 tempo, because you see the third element here is the tempo. It's 1, 2, or 3 seconds. And just with these lovely, like 3-second circles with a little pause. That's the next thing is, little pause. And I said to my friend, tell me about your mother. And I mean, instantly, the mother started listening, and it's just so calming because I was connecting with her in 2 ways, you know, verbally, but also with this wonderful, just calming touch.
Wow.
And we have Feldenkrais practitioners, for instance, who also do TTouch, and the experience that they've had with Alzheimer's and dementia is very profound, because in a few of these touches, you can reach out and connect with the person and bring them into the body and allow them to feel themselves in a safe way, just from all these elements. And you'll see on here, it's breathing, it's posture, it's intention. Now that 8th element on this orange leg here, sorry, this intention. What's my intention? I've been asked, are you a healer? No, I am not a healer. And I'm not bringing energy into the body. What we're doing is supporting this brilliance at the cellular level. How do we think? I mean, think about this. How come our blood flows without us doing anything? How do we breathe? Our lungs work. We don't do anything. Our lymph works. It all works, and we don't have to do anything. What is behind it? So all these years, I keep talking about cellular intelligence, and finally, I found a book, The Code of Authentic Living, Cellular Wisdom by Joan King.
Joan King?
And Joan King, yes. Yep. And she, for 20 years, she was a cell biologist researcher at Tufts School of Medicine. And then she heard a legend. And this is a legend that gave me the answer, my answer. How is it that I can disappear pain on myself? Like in a very short time. What is this cellular intelligence? And the legend is that she heard, and it completely changed. She stopped being a researcher. She started doing life coaching. And that book is so beautiful. And the book, why it grabbed me, the first sentence in the first chapter is, every cell is a genius. Well, that's my thing, you know, like that's what Sherrington attracted me. I mean, alerted me to this idea that every cell in the body knows its function in the body. And then Bruce Lipton's book, this spontaneous evolution, the evolution of our cells. It all fits with what we do with TTouch. So the intention is to acknowledge and recognize this divine consciousness in every cell. What else can it be? I mean, come on. It's so interesting. So this Hindu legend is what made Joan King leave her career at Tufts and follow the path of cellular wisdom, which is at the heart of TTouch. And this legend is it's a Hindu legend, and what it said is that sometime on the planet, every person was a god. They could do anything. They had full power over everything. And then mankind began to abuse the power. And it became so bad on the planet that the head Brahmin said, no, we're taking this power away. This cannot go on. And so they had this big powwow, and one of them said, I know where we'll hide it. We'll take it to the highest mountain and we'll put it up there. Nobody will ever find it. And the chief Brahmin said, no, they'll eventually, they'll find it. And then another one said, what? We'll put it in the deepest part of the ocean. No, they'll eventually go there. Well, we can find the deepest cave and we can go even deeper and we'll hide it in the earth. No. And then in a flash of knowing, head Brahmin said, I know where we'll hide it, and they'll never find it. We'll hide it inside. And that is what I believe is we can speak to. It's like the TTouches are a connector. It's 1 1/4. It's like the golden spiral. It's a connector to that cellular intelligence in every one of us. And as a Feldenkrais practitioner, you can give this work to your clients to take home to help themselves, when they're afraid. And that's what Eleanor Silverstein, one of your wonderful, dearest friends of mine and Feldenkrais practitioners, is doing this in all her classes, is the TTouch Heart Hug.
Actually, before you go on, I just think this is so big that you're saying you're connecting with the cellular wisdom really kind of in an acknowledgement. You're not connecting to restore it. You're not connecting to heal it. You're not connecting to energize it. You're just connecting as a kind of acknowledgement.
Exactly. Recognition of this vessel that contains our 100 trillion cells, and of this amazing divine consciousness, this universal knowing, this universal consciousness in every one of us. Pretty wild.
It is pretty wild.
Pretty simple.
It is absolutely very wild and very yeah. I mean, it is simple, but you've also I'm not exactly sure what I want to say, but you've systematized it in a way that makes it accessible to people, because we do have a tendency to be in our habitual patterns. And so we would touch in the same way that we're used to being touched and used to touching others, and not listening to others and not listening to ourselves and all of that. So I think you've systematized it in a nice way.
Well, and learning to love ourselves, that is the hardest thing. And one of the bases of our work is it's a Hawaiian prayer for forgiveness. And it's really simple, and it's so important in this day and age. And for this idea, it's Ho'oponopono, Ho'oponopono, Ho'oponopono. And there are 2 books that I love. One is by Ulrich Dupre. It's this tiny little book. It's absolutely wonderful. And the other one is by Dr. Luc Bodin and 2 others with him. And it's like, if you want the science behind why all of this works, including quantum science and Heart Math Institute, it's all in that book. So it's part of our training, part of our teaching, with finding that the importance of this forgiveness for ourselves. Interesting. So I'd like, do I have a few minutes to tell you how I came to this heart hug?
Not very much. We're getting close to the end here. So just maybe a minute or 2, and then the heart hug itself.
To just really quickly, because it gives you a sense of the power of this work. So I was giving a workshop many years ago. Actually, I was co-teaching with Mia, a week-long retreat. And a woman who was hypnotist therapist came to me, and she said she'd had these unknown fears, like unfounded fears, as long as she could remember. And she'd done all kinds of therapy and nothing got rid of it. Could I help her? I said, well, I don't know if it'll help, but just put one hand over the other on your chest. I didn't even think of it at that point as a heart chakra, just on your chest, and move the tissue gently in a circle. And it wasn't even a quarter yet there. And so she went at the lunch break and came back with tears in her eyes and said she could feel a sense after all those years of being okay, not being in a place of fear. And I have taken this over the years, and we've now done studies looking the brain up and showing that when you move the tissue in 1 1/4 circles, in what now we call the heart hug. Just so first of all, I'm going to lead you in this, and imagine the face of a clock. And the reason we imagine the face of the clock is that whenever we imagine, we activate the right brain. Remember the responsibility for feeling, creativity, intuition, compassion. We imagine the face of the clock, and on the clock we put the numbers 6 toward the ground, 9, 12, and 3. Now, why do we put the numbers on? Activating the logical left brain. We have a method here, so we get both left and right brain activation. And whenever we move the tissue around in whichever direction you want, don't even think about the direction, from 6 around 1 1/4 ways. I'm going to go the other direction now, and I'm not bringing this hand up quite as high because it's, yeah, I can do this now. I'm still a little bit tight on this.
So you usually do have both hands then?
Usually you have both hands.
Okay.
And
I can be the both hands person.
You can be the both hands. I have 5 screws in this elbow, so it's not quite able to get up there yet. And so 1 1/4. Now, a couple of little things to add to it. Take a deep breath in through your nose and out slowly through pursed lips. Now add
Pursed
something
lips,
else
okay.
to it. Pursed lips, like, and make a little pause at your quarter, at either the 9 or the 3. Now add in the smile, because when you add in the smile, you activate the feel-good hormone, the serotonin. And by gently moving the tissue, you're activating the oxytocin, the trust hormone, as Bruce Lipton's calling it. Now, why do we do this? We're all under stress so much of the time. And what we found by Robin Bernhard and Sandy Rakowitz's study is that when you're in a state of, these looping thoughts, do you ever get those?
Oh, no.
Oh, no, me either. Never.
I'm a
never,
continual loop.
You can stop those looping thoughts in like literally a minute or 2. If you're in a panic state, if a person is in a panic state, you can stop that panic. And what it does is, we've seen this, measurable. You take it from the activation, the control of the amygdala, and to the forebrain. So you can actually stop reacting as in fight, flight, freeze, fool around. You can take it to the place of being able to think and be present. And you can measure it with the inner balance from heart math and find that it puts you right into heart coherence. And that is a state for relaxation and recovery. And it's the ideal state for us to be in that state.
What a wonderful gift for people. I mean, they have so much usable material right here, Linda, out of today. And I know you also offer online programs, but one of the great things that you're offering is if people just click right below the video today, you're giving them a couple of options that they could sign up for a workshop or
Right.
for human touch, I think it is, or something to do for their dog.
Yes, you get, the thing is, you can use all these things that you learn for yourself. You can work with your dog or your cat or your guinea pig, you know, or your horse, of course. And so what we're offering is, um, a 2 hour and 20-minute video of the details of this, the various touches, the research behind it, what it's all about.
Oh, that's
So,
fabulous.
yeah.
Yes, so good. So I would encourage people to go and grab that, and then what it would happen is, of course, that would give you the opportunity to continue to learn more about Linda's work and other opportunities that you might want to have. I'm sure that the work is deep enough and rich enough that it's not learned in 2 hours.
No, you can do it yourself in 2 hours.
You can do, you absolutely, people have already got something very usable, and I think that you've done very well with that, but there's more possibility there. Yeah.
Yes. And you know, as a Feldenkrais practitioner, or a practitioner of any method of healing and helping people on the planet, this is something that you can add in to give to your clients or give to yourself, because so much of the time we forget about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And I just have to tell you, like this arm, 3 months ago, I fell down the stairs, the escalator in LAX at the airport, and I fractured the humerus and the elbow and had a big sprain here. And I've just been working this like for, you know, hours every day, at least 30 minutes but in the beginning. And my doctor just cannot believe it, because everybody said, you're going to have so much pain. You can disappear the pain.
Just can disappear the pain.
Yep. For yourself.
I love that statement. That phrase is very purposeful that you're using. You're not saying get rid of. You're saying you can disappear the pain. I love it. You're very intentional. Linda, we've been asking everyone in the summit if they have a favorite quote that for them right now maybe inspires them, and we're wondering what that might be for you.
Well, my quote that has to do with the intention of working on the body, whether it's our own body or someone else's body, whether it's a person or an animal, it's our intention to give the message, remember your perfection.
Remember
at the cellular level. It's when you think that perfection at the cellular level, that divine spark that is at the nucleus of every cell, what makes Joan King, this researcher biologist, say that every cell is a genius. When we give the body that message, when I put my hands on a person or an animal, and that's my message, rather than looking for, you know, what's wrong, but giving the message, remember your perfection. That's a gift that we can give ourselves and everybody else.
Thank you, Linda. I want to thank everyone for tuning in here to Move Better, Feel Better. I mean, who does not want that? And Linda has given us a definite ways to engage ourselves for that are very doable in just about any place, any time, and with any situation with your hands. So if you want to learn more, I hope you will. Click on the link below this video so that you can get a little bit more goodness out of this. And also just to remind you that if you want to have access to all these talks way beyond when the summit is over, you want to grab those, you can get them at a discount now while the summit is on, and we encourage you to do that. You'll get them through emails, or you'll see it on the feldenkraissummit.com page as an opportunity as well. Linda, thank you again. It's been such a pleasure. I've been hearing about you for years, a lot from Eleanor. I mean, you know, she is quite an advocate of yours, quite a partner in spreading your word and your work and making sure people incorporate it as much as they can. So a lot has come through Eleanor, but I've been interested in you in a while, and you're just really delightful to talk with, and I've enjoyed exploring with you in our lead ups to this and then our actual time together today. So
It's been my pleasure. Thank you.
thank you. And let's just
And
say goodbye.
aloha.
And aloha. Aloha. Oh, would you like to show us your seeing? Can you actually move your computer around?
Yeah.
Just let's see what you're
Let
seeing.
me
You're telling us
take this.
how beautiful it is. Let's go ahead and see it.
Okay, I'm going to just detach this in a second. Just takes me a second here
That's
if I can pull this. Sorry, I'm going to unhook you and take you to so you
yeah.
can see the ocean, and it's so beautiful. Oh, I took my I forgot I'd taken my glasses off. Can't quite see the screen quite as well. Okay, just takes me a second here. You can enjoy your breathing at the moment. Take this slack time. It's so lovely, isn't it? Okay, here we go. I just get this out of here. And we don't take enough slack time, do we?
No, we don't.
This is a nice time to just enjoy. And oh my goodness, what I forgot. This is so important. As part of this heart hug and part of all of the work, it's to count your blessings, give gratitude, and attitude of gratitude is at the basis of all of this work, and it's so important for us. So I'm going to now show you the gratitude of what I live with here, which is so incredible. And then I'm going to show you, can you see out that window, you see the palm trees? And then, and that ladder, by the way, that's a, can you see that? Can you see that ladder? That's an agility ladder that I use for my balance.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, well.
Oh, there's the palms. Yeah.
This is what I live with. Look at
this. There we go. That's lovely.
Can you see the ocean?
Yes, I can see the ocean. I can see the ocean. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes,
beautiful.
You're sending Hawaiian sunshine.
Yeah. Thank you so much, dear.
Pleasure.
So let's turn it around on your face there again. We'll say goodbye to you.
Oh, yes. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for sharing your inspiration and your touching memories of Moshe. We really appreciate it, Linda.
My great honor.
Okay.
Aloha.
Bye-bye. Aloha.
Bye.